Was there, before you even answer the question, to defend democracy, was there democracy in Gabon?
All right, hold on. Okay, now, this whole thing has centered around democracy. It is shocking somewhat. When you look around the new media, a lot of Africans are excited.
Absolutely.
Niger happened just July 26th here.
Yes.
Nigerians jumped to the high heavens like Jesus has descended into Niger.
Absolutely.
Look at Gabon yesterday morning. People across board were jubilating that a coup had taken place, a military coup, as a matter of fact, has taken place in this. Now, this is the fifth, or not the sixth African country, okay, the fifth now,
yes,
that is under military rule. Now, the president is saying, who is also the ECOWAS chair, he said that he's going to partner with AU and all of these people to see that there is a consensus to work against the contagious autocracy across Africa. Now, what led Africa to where Africa is? Africans embrace democracy, fully embrace democracy, but now, has democracy served Africans in any way? Before you come into that, from political parties without ideologies, from strong men imposing themselves in the system, we have mentioned how many? You've mentioned Tinubu, Wike, Kwankwaso, and there are several others who have imposed themselves on the system, determining what they want to be, what the people would agree with.
Absolutely.
Looking at the Nigerian election of the 2023 for the presidential and governorship election, and with this said, a contagious autocracy rolling around Africa right now, how much of a consensus do you think the African Union can actually come up with to sincerely tell themselves the truth and begin to deal with the issue?
They have lost morality to fight what they call contagious autocracy. As it stands in a lot of... Yes, they've lost morality because they watch without doing anything, as we see from one African country, African Union.
Okay, good.
As we see several African countries give to themselves civilian coup.
Explain that, please.
So, democracy as popularized is about government of the people, by the people and for the people. The people, always central to democracy.
Supposedly.
Yes, that's what democracy is supposedly supposed to be. And these leaders, without shame, say to us that they are practicing democracy when their fathers handed over to them and they are preparing to hand over to their children.
But they hand over, actually.
This war now in Gabon, his father handed over to him, and he's already priming his son to hand over to his son.
Yep.
How much of a democracy? What is that? Is that a democracy? Please excuse me, Nigerians. That is a monarchy. How else do you describe a monarchy?
So maybe a democracy.
At best, you can call it a constitutional monarchy.
Okay.
But that cannot be a democracy, because the people are not determining how they want to be governed.
Okay.
I can mention not less than 8 countries for you in Africa today that their leaders have stayed beyond 20 years, 30 years, 35 years. Cameroon is one of them. How do you say that that is democracy? The rest of Africa is watching as they change, alter, affect their constitution, except you want to redefine the African democracy, and I would have no problem with that.
Okay.
Because the Chinese have redefined their democracy to say we are not going to allow everyone choose who will be our leaders.
Okay.
We are going to allow only a selected few who we have trained. We have given the right political binoculars, the right cerebral binoculars, with which to be able to look out for the right qualities that must be present in an individual to be called a prime minister in China.
Yep.
That's their form of democracy, and they have a way of selecting their leaders, and it's working for them. In Russia, they have their own form and system of democracy that they have given to themselves, and whether you like it or not, it's working for them. I have nothing entirely wrong with us in Africa, in Nigeria, redefining our space to say, because of the political involvement of our people or evolution of our people, we are not equally conscientized, equally educated to be strong enough to determine rightly, without binoculars of religion, binoculars of ethnicity, who is really supposed to be our leader. Therefore, we are going to have a diarchy. Therefore, we are going to have XYZ. We can redefine this space, because if we allowed the people to always determine, it would therefore be the tyranny of the majority. And the majority may not necessarily be the ones making the best decision. Imagine, for instance, let me give a typical example. The world over, they know that the most educationally disadvantaged people are in the north. In the northern part of Nigeria. Nigerians are also aware that the majority vote that determines who becomes the president of this country is in the north. Therefore, if you were putting these two simple illustrations side by side, you will see that the ones who are educationally disadvantaged, the ones who are not aware, who do not know how to determine, where to determine, by what standard or measure to determine other than religious standard and the belematic standards, they are the ones who determine who becomes your president. That's why we are not interested in whether the person is a school cert holder, whether the person even went to school, whether the person is a BSc graduate. We are not interested. Nigeria is the only country where to become a security man in any company in Nigeria, they are interested in your results. They are interested in seeing your CV, what primary school you went to. But to become the president of the country, nobody could care less whether you even went to school. Look at the case of our current president. You did not go to a primary school that we are aware of. You did not go to a secondary school that we are aware of, but you went to university. How is that possible? A former lawman who is the current aviation minister comes to tell us that the most interesting thing is that Nigerians do not know is that in those days, strong men don't even read in school. They read from home. What? And I'm careful with the choice of words today. It's only in Nigeria that you find that to qualify you to become a permanent secretary. And I don't know where we even got that from. To become a permanent secretary in any of the ministry, you ought to have gone to do your PhD in this. You ought to have 32 years experience in this. You ought to do this. But to be the president of the country, they say that you can have an equivalent of a school cert so long as you have gone to any kind of secondary school is important. The point I'm making is that we must begin to, come back to the drawing table as a people to say that how can we best govern ourselves?
All right.
Would we continue to govern ourselves by the standards and the dictates of the international community or much more developed world who have developed their people sufficiently for their people to be able to decide who truly can be a good leader? Should we continue to govern ourselves by their standards, or we come home?
Let's wrap it up in this regard. We have heard from Germany, we've heard from other countries over the Gabon coup, the latest one.
Yes.
We have also seen France's dominance, authoritarianism over Niger.
Absolutely.
Even when they are no longer under the authority. Niger is a republic.
Yes.
What a lot of us are watching from the side is, yes, we don't want military rule. However, why are these countries silent in the
Who are those that are saying they don't want military rule in the first instance?
Military, we have always been told that the best democracy is better than the
then every time they say that, I then ask them, every time they say the worst form of democracy is better than the best, I then ask them, are you having democracy in Africa?
Okay, good. Why you have that at the back? Why you have that? Here is where I'm going to. Why we look up to these people who gave us democracy as a beacon of hope or light, as the case may be, to show us the way how to navigate this democracy. Why is it that what they don't tolerate in their countries, they tolerate it from African leaders? Why is it that things that are leading, that has led to this barrel of gold being used to rule? And
Simple. They have their stooges in position, and their stooges help to extend their territories, help them to extend their territories into Africa. Their stooges help them to come and steal from Africans. Their stooges help them to, because I have continuously said the African leaders that are thieves and are stealing from us, where are they taking these monies to?
The contention about President Tinubu's certification is happening in the Chicago State University in the United States.
Yes.
All of the issues around his education and the corruption, drug deals, for future and all of that are tied to the United States.
Yes.
Yet, in the face of all of this...
They have even removed the year from the yearbook. If you go to Chicago, this yearbook, the year that they said it, they have even removed it.
Yeah.
You will not see it there. It tells you that the international community, they are collaborators. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to paint a typical example of why I think that why I know that the international community, they are collaborators.
You have 1 minute, 30 seconds.
So simple. We were told by the president of Kenya that
William Ruto,
Africa, as a matter of fact, is not yet democratic. Africa is not yet independent.
That was in the recent meeting in France.
Yes. He had mentioned to us, and another leader had mentioned to us, citing example of the case in Libya, that I think it was a leader in South Africa, right? That said that himself, he did not join that meeting. A few people were going to Libya to go and settle the issue in Libya. NATO called them and told them to go back, and that they should go to their countries that they are coming from, that they had nothing to do in Libya because NATO had already taken charge. Libya is a country in Africa. African leaders were going to solve the problem. Then NATO called them to go back. Let me even shock you. What is worrisome is that it is so easy for leaders in Europe to come, get visas to come to Africa. So easy. But guess what? It is so arduous and difficult for the peoples of Africa to get visa to go to Europe. All of the African leaders that you know today, they steal monies and they go and domicile these monies in Europe, in France, in these countries abroad, in America. And they sit down, spend our monies, and determine for us how we are going to use our monies should they return it. It speaks to the fact that we are still not ready for this development. Sometimes I wonder whether we were too quick at asking even for independence. You know, when a young child is quickly demanding for meats from the mother, even without having the set of instruments in the mouth with which to be able to masticate properly that meat, what that child is calling for is pain.
All right.
Today, as I speak to you, Africans, Nigerians must understand that we must begin to give to ourselves what we can understand. We must come back to the drawing table to redefine how we want to be governed. Otherwise, a few people will continue to have the civilian coup perpetuate themselves in office, steal monies from Africa, help the foreigners to make away with our common good, with our common wealth, without the people benefiting and the people suffering. Go see what's happening in Niger. Poverty is on the street. Come see what's happening in Nigeria. Poverty is on the street. See what is happening in Gabon. Poverty is on the street. Yet a few people, together with the West, are enjoying the wealth of this country until we are willing to come to the table to redefine the things that will and must govern us. Nigerians and Africans must continue to find themselves in these kind of situations.